Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds, attempting to defend his boss and the chairman of the FCC with a new fairy tale even a 5-year-old wouldn't believe.
Celebrities are rallying to his cause, saying this is a First Amendment assault being carried out by the FCC, Brendan Carr, and by the President of the United States himself. And to that you say?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I'd like them to tell me exactly what Brendan Carr did to have Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air, because number one, he is currently on the air, and to the extent that he isn't in certain stations, it's because he's not funny and because his ratings aren't very good.
I have some good news for you, J-Dog. We're back on all the stations.
JD Vance spent several days clearly irritated after Jimmy Kimmel lit him up once again during a live television monologue, and honestly, it is not hard to see why, because few things frustrate a politician more than a joke that lands because it carries a dose of truth. Kimmel did not limit himself to harmless teasing about Vance's haircut or surface-level humor. Instead, he guided the audience through Vance's real public record step by step, highlighting the rumors he helped spread, the dramatic performances he often delivers during interviews, and the dizzying political transformation that turned him from a loud skeptic of Donald Trump into one of Trump's most enthusiastic defenders. Anyone who has followed this story as it unfolded over time already understands why Vance seemed so furious afterward, because the contrast is impossible to ignore. And if you are just catching up with this saga now, then trust me, this ride gets interesting very quickly, so stay with me.
A lot of pressure on JD Vance tonight. JD Vance hasn't been under a microscope like this since his wife asked him why the couch was so sticky. But Trump had good advice. He told him, just have fun, and you know what? It seems like he did.
I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit, because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are.
That's how you get the single cat ladies back on your side. You know,
the story really takes shape in Springfield, Ohio, where JD Vance amplified one of the most reckless and thoroughly debunked rumors circulating during the political cycle. The claim suggested that Haitian migrants were killing and eating people's pets, which sounds like something pulled from a bizarre internet chain message rather than a serious allegation. This was not a case of someone hearing a strange story from a neighbor or a rumor whispered behind a fence. It was the type of chaotic misinformation that spreads across social media like a broken game of telephone. Local authorities, reporters actually present in the community, and residents of Springfield themselves quickly shut the claim down and made it clear the story had no basis in reality. Yet Vance continued to push the narrative to a massive audience, because in today's attention-driven media environment, dramatic, fear-based stories attract clicks, shares, and headlines far faster than calm facts ever do.
Vice presidential candidate JD Vance is now pushing a bizarre conspiracy theory that is taking the right by storm. Tonight, CNN's Tom Foreman has fact-checked this claim about Haitian immigrants abducting and eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. Tom?
Trump's own running mate, JD Vance, is the main source of this nonsense. He's been talking about this in speeches. He's been posting about this as much as he can. The city of Springfield, in his state, Ohio, says there have been no credible reports of Haitians eating pets. But JD Vance, who wants to be vice president of the United States, keeps bringing it up.
When CNN asked Vance's office why he is pushing such a blatant lie, they said Senator Vance has received a high volume of calls and emails over the past several weeks from concerned citizens in Springfield. His tweet is based on what he is hearing from them.
Oh, he's getting calls. I didn't know he was getting calls. Now it makes sense. I guess all you have to do to get JD Vance to start spreading crazy things around is make calls.
During his monologue, Jimmy Kimmel methodically dismantled that rumor in the way sharp political satire often works. He presented the receipts, walked viewers through the timeline showing how the false claim traveled across social media, and then turned the spotlight on the person who kept repeating it as if he had uncovered a historic mystery like the Lindbergh kidnapping. Kimmel's point, paraphrased in his usual sarcastic style, was essentially this:
You cannot light a fire in your own backyard and then run around screaming about how hot everything feels. The joke landed because the logic was so obvious. And if you caught that segment when it aired, I would love to know what you thought. Do you believe Vance simply got caught up in bad information and handled it carelessly? Or do you think he knowingly pushed the rumor because outrage and attention are powerful political currency right now?
First of all, Kimmel was taken off the air because he had low ratings, because the late-night talk show host model was not doing particularly well, and let's be honest, because he had become so politically unhinged that I think he wasn't particularly funny. Now, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, put out a couple of tweets, but the government took no action. We did literally nothing to try to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air. We believe in free speech. We also believe in the right of a television station or a network to cancel somebody because of low ratings. And I think it's a little bit rich. The second point I make, Rashad, is it's a little bit rich for people to say that somehow we're engaged in censorship when literally every day, including yesterday, we found out that Google and YouTube were censoring information at the height of COVID at the direction of the Biden administration. So if we're looking for real sources of the government driving censorship, we should be looking at the policies of the Biden administration. We absolutely reject censorship in the Trump administration. We don't want to prevent anybody from speaking their mind, but if a TV station wants to cancel a guy because he's not funny, that's their business.
I honestly find the answer fascinating because this situation fits into a much bigger pattern that stretches back several years. Think back to the earlier phase of JD Vance's career, when he built his reputation by explaining in great detail what he believed was wrong with Trump-style politics. During that period, he openly criticized Donald Trump and even described the movement surrounding him as something similar to cultural heroin, an influence that can feel exciting at first, but slowly damages the people consuming it. That was the moment when Vance was known for his best-selling writing, for serious book tour conversations, and for presenting himself as a thoughtful conservative voice trying to analyze the country's political direction. It was a very different public persona from the one we see today, which makes what happened next even more striking.
And so one of the takeaways is not just that the Republican Party base is somehow fundamentally flawed in a way that's unique in American political history, it's that Trump is a really bad candidate, and frankly, I think a really bad person.
Said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him. Terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
I didn't know you meant that, Donald Trump.
Then, almost overnight, the tone shifted dramatically. The harsh criticism disappeared, the red campaign cap appeared, and suddenly JD Vance was appearing on television defending the very political figure he once attacked, describing Donald Trump as essential to the country's future. For Jimmy Kimmel, that reversal has become comedic gold. He returns to it again and again like someone happily working through leftovers from a holiday feast. The reason it works so well is simple. Kimmel does not need elaborate jokes to highlight the contradiction. He simply plays clips from years ago where Vance criticizes Trump, then immediately follows them with newer clips where Vance praises him enthusiastically, allowing the audience to connect the dots on their own. And there is a basic rule of comedy that applies here. When your own past statements completely dismantle your present talking points, the issue is not messaging strategy. The issue is credibility.
I mean to interrupt your bull. Go on.
There's something else that's important here, Laura, which is that these broadcast companies, ABC, NBC, CBS, they enjoy the public airwaves because they serve the public interest. So I actually think that we should be having a conversation about whether these companies are serving the public interest. That's actually totally separate from the Jimmy Kimmel issue because nothing happened to him. He's currently on the air, and to the extent that he's not, it's because advertisers don't like him because his ratings aren't very good.
My ratings aren't very good. Last time I checked, your ratings were somewhere between a hair in your salad and chlamydia. In 3.5 years, I'm not the one who's going to be doing mascara tutorials on YouTube. How did we wind up with a president and a vice president who wear more makeup than Kylie Jenner and Lady Gaga combined?
That credibility challenge appears in other areas of Vance's political messaging as well, especially in the culture war lines he likes to repeat. One of the most talked about examples is his comment about so-called childless cat ladies supposedly running America, suggesting that people without children have less interest in the country's long-term future. The idea might sound provocative in a political speech, but it falls apart quickly under basic scrutiny. Policies related to healthcare, child tax credits, education, and paid family leave all directly affect children and families regardless of who is writing the legislation. Kimmel responded by pointing out something obvious but powerful. The United States is not a parenting blog where civic value is measured by the number of kids someone has. It is a constitutional democracy where participation and responsibility come from citizenship, not from a family photo album.
Tylenol. It's been overwhelming. I've heard from a lot of people over the last 6 days. I've heard from all the people in the world over the last 6 days. Everyone I have ever met has reached out 10 or 11 times. Weird characters from my past. The guy who fired me from my first radio job in Seattle, where we are not airing tonight, by the way. Sorry, Seattle. His name is Larry. In 1989, Larry tried to force me to do a bit called Jokes for Donuts, where people would call in with a joke and I would give them donuts. I refused to do it, and then I made a lot of fun of Larry for suggesting it, and eventually Larry fired me, and I had to move back in with my parents. But even he wrote in to cheer me up. Thank you, Larry, and I want to thank everyone who checked.
Kimmel delivered that point with the kind of quick and sharp humor that late-night television thrives on. But underneath the joke was a value many conservatives used to emphasize strongly, the idea of personal responsibility. If a policy argument cannot stand on its own merits, shifting the conversation towards someone's personal life or family status does not make the argument stronger. It simply avoids the real discussion. Then there is the constant praise directed toward Donald Trump. Kimmel has turned that pattern into one of his favorite recurring segments because the contradictions practically write themselves. One memorable example came during Trump's endorsement moment when he accidentally referred to his new political ally as JD Mandel, mixing up the name of the man he was supposedly elevating.
There is some silver lining to the shutdown. According to their official website, during the shutdown, our friends at the FCC will cease their response to consumer complaint and inquiry phone lines, which I'm not a lawyer, but I think means we can now say whatever we want on TV, right?
How long you worked here?
A year.
Okay. Donut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which donut, though?
Just whatever makes sense. No pickles. Hold the pickles.
Oh, well, no, I can get that for you.
For most people, being publicly misidentified by the political leader they admire might trigger a moment of embarrassment, or at least reflection. For JD Vance, it somehow turned into another opportunity to show loyalty. Kimmel pointed out the humor in that moment by asking a simple question that instantly got laughs from the audience. Who gives up their dignity in hopes of a public shout-out and still celebrates even when the shout-out does not actually happen? From that point forward, the pattern continued. Each time Trump stumbled into another controversy, whether it involved confusing teleprompter moments, wild conspiracy claims, or angry attacks against corporations, Vance often rushed in to defend him. For late-night writers, the routine almost felt like a fill-in-the-blanks comedy exercise. Insert the latest controversy, add the familiar defense, and press play.
All week to list all of them, but some that I do especially want to mention are my fellow late-night talk show hosts, my friend Stephen Colbert, who found himself in this predicament, my friends Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Conan O'Brien, James Corden, Arsenio, Kathy, Wanda, Chelsea, even Jay reached out. Sometimes I wonder in what world is the vice president of the United States calling into a giant tooth podcast host to badmouth me and the people who watch this show.
There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say the president can't exercise the powers of the presidency.
What really pushed JD Vance into full frustration recently was a different segment, where Jimmy Kimmel addressed the claim that Kimmel's own late-night program had supposedly been sidelined because viewers were abandoning it. That talking point collapsed extremely quickly once the real story surfaced. The situation involved a temporary preemption tied to outside pressure and what many observers described as a troubling brush with government-influenced censorship. When the show returned to its normal schedule, the response from viewers was immediate and strong. The program pulled in huge numbers both on television and across online platforms. Kimmel leaned directly into the controversy and addressed it head-on, openly discussing the issue instead of pretending nothing had happened.
The tradition of meddling where they shouldn't under many administrations, but it wasn't always like this. There was an FCC commissioner back in 2022 who worked under Joe Biden who was spot on. He wrote, "President Biden is right. Political satire is one of the oldest and most important forms of free speech. It challenges those in power while using humor to draw more people into the discussion. That's why people in influential positions have always targeted it for censorship." You know who wrote that? FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr. Our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Steven off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous.
His central message was simple and rooted in a long-standing American principle. In the United States, the government does not get to choose which jokes comedians are allowed to tell on television. Vance attempted to frame the situation differently by suggesting it was merely a normal business decision within the media marketplace, but the reaction from viewers told another story entirely. The louder critics insisted that nobody was watching Kimmel's show anymore, the more curious people became, and the more they tuned in to see what all the noise was about. The irony almost felt like something pulled from a classic theater plot. The attempt to discourage attention ended up creating even more attention than before.
They call me creepy, cringy, awkward, that I give people something called the ick. They want you to think that I can't order a simple donut.
Was appointed chairman of the FCC by this former crusader for free speech.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple. Just like dominoes, one by one, they'll go down.
That was also in 2022. And I wonder, how did that guy turn into this guy?
Who would you like to see replace Kimmel on late night?
A lot of people, anybody could replace him. The guy had no talent. Kimmel he was fired, he had no talent. He's a whack job, but he had no talent. And more importantly than talent, he had no, because a lot of people have no talent.
All of this connects back to the Springfield rumor and the broader political tactic that often accompanies it, portraying migrants as frightening outsiders responsible for shocking crimes. Kimmel addressed that narrative directly and made a point that many traditional news anchors could repeat far more often. If someone is going to accuse an already vulnerable community of extreme or disturbing behavior, the accusation needs to be supported by actual evidence, not by vague feelings, not by viral video clips taken out of context, and not by anonymous stories passed around online. During the segment, Kimmel displayed statements from local officials, referenced fact checks, and highlighted straightforward reporting from journalists who investigated the claim. In doing so, he showed how satire sometimes performs a surprising public service by stripping away dramatic noise and examining the facts underneath.
To talk to the chairman of the FCC.
You don't need to know my name, and I am the new chairman of the FCC.
You were appointed FCC chairman by Donald Trump?
Sir Trump, yes. I used to do this at work with a man here and there in Atlantic City.
But did I just hear you on the phone threatening Whoopi Goldberg?
No, I would never threaten Miss Goldstein. I was just teaching her a lesson about consequences.
No, well, but pardon me for saying so. Maybe you're the wrong guy to talk to, but it seems like the FCC is using mob tactics to suppress free speech.
What the did you just say?
My mother.
We are definitely not driving back to the brunt of the effect of the shutdown, it will be felt right here in New York. To punish you for disliking him, Trump is putting $18 billion worth of New York City infrastructure projects, like the new rail tunnels under the Hudson and the 2nd Avenue subway project, on hold to make sure the money isn't being used to support DEI. Apparently, they think trans stands for transportation over there, and they want to stop it. This is clearly an abuse of power to punish the city. And New York City infrastructure projects are not supposed to be delayed because Trump wants to strong-arm Democrats into cutting health care. They're supposed to be delayed because they're New York City infrastructure projects.
So now I am curious about what you think. Do you feel that late-night comedy shows have quietly become one of the few places where misinformation gets broken down in simple language that ordinary viewers can follow? Because when it came to Jimmy Kimmel's criticism, JD Vance responded in a very familiar way. First, he suggested that the issue was really about tone, and claimed comedians were simply being unfair or hostile toward conservatives. Then he doubled down on the exact behavior that triggered the criticism in the first place. When Kimmel exposed the Springfield rumor as a hoax, Vance accused the media of bias. When Kimmel replayed Vance's own earlier statements criticizing Donald Trump, Vance insisted that his current position had always been his true beliefs. And that contradiction is exactly why the story keeps getting attention.
I mean, seriously, if that guy walked into your office and told you he was there to start making cuts.
I have friends who met a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, who met the best man at their wedding at Turning Points USA because it was an organization of patriots dedicated to making this country the very best country that it could be.